we're going to be continuing with our study, and we're going to be in Matthew chapter 13. David, go ahead and read that for us.
We're going to Nazareth.
We're going to Nazareth, and you have a transition, don't
We're
you?
going to be in Nazareth. This here is Jesus' rejection in his hometown. Even at the midpoint of his Galilean ministry, Jesus continued to be met with resistance and unbelief in his hometown of Nazareth. Mark once again closely connects Jesus' miracles and his teachings. The people wondered about what wisdom Jesus possessed to be able to perform such mighty works. Matthew characteristically maintains more of a distinction between teaching of miracles and speaking of them individually. This wisdom and these mighty works, end quote. Being attracted to Jesus' miraculous works is not sufficient to make one a true disciple of his. Faith for Matthew is crucial, and the limited miracles performed in Nazareth are directly attributed to the people's unbelief. Okay, Jesus revisits Nazareth. When Jesus had finished these parables, he left there, and after coming to Nazareth, his hometown, he began teaching them in their synagogue, and they were astonished and said, "Where did this man get his wisdom and these miraculous powers? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas?" Well, there's something you can take a look at. And his sisters, are they not living here among us? Where then did this man get all this wisdom and power? And they took offense at him, refusing to believe in him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown and in his own household." And he did not do many miracles there in Nazareth because of their unbelief. Now, if you want to talk about Jesus' relatives now, there's the name of 4 brothers right there.
Yep. But what I find interesting is the prophet is honored everywhere else except his hometown.
I think that's the trouble, is that you grow up in one place and just about everybody knows you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they know that what he does can't be real.
I guess it kind of goes, don't judge a book by its cover.
Well, the thing is, it's like these people knew the book up until the point Jesus started his ministry and left. So they hadn't got to the end of the book yet.
Yep.
And based on what they've read before, this should not be the ending of the book. Little community, you get well known.
Yeah.
Jesus is there almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And like you said, is this not the son of Mary? Didn't so and so aren't they his brothers? And what about his sisters? So they knew the whole family.
Yep.
And here, Jesus is being has this wisdom and authority to do miracles that they don't see how he got it, because he was raised a carpenter. That's all they saw.
Yep.
Now he's coming
True.
back, so they can't believe him because they think they know him.
Yeah.
But now he's the son of God, and They can't.
They can't say it.
And that's why he can't perform miracles, because they can't believe of what he's able to do now.
Okay, Jesus left that part of the country and returned with his disciples to Nazareth, his hometown. The next Sabbath, teaching in the synagogues, and many who heard him were amazed. They asked, "Where did he get all of this wisdom and the power to perform such miracles?" Then they scoffed, "He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, and his sisters live right here among us." They were deeply offended and refused to believe him. Then Jesus told them, "A prophet is honored everywhere except his own town and among his relatives and his own family." And because of their unbelief, he couldn't do any miracles among them except to the place his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Now we have to really take it by faith. It's easy hearing a preacher say, "Hey, you need to do this," and but who's a preacher? He's definitely not the son of God, right? So versus someone that we have now, a preacher, versus the real Jesus, or the real thing, which is, I guess that is kind of like the real thing. He was there, but now we just have to take it all by faith, and that's just something. That's something to me that's hard to do. You can. Who wants Luke chapter 4? Go ahead, Chicken Lips.
This is a good one.
It is?
Yeah.
From what to what?
16 through 30.
16 through 30. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And he was handed a book from the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery the sight of the blind, to set the liberty of those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." To what now?
30.
Then he closed the book and gave it back to the attendants and sat down. And the eyes of all who were in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So all bore witness to him and marveled at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, "Is this not Joseph's son?" And he said to them, "You will surely say this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself. Whatever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also in your country." And he said, absurdly, I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country, but I tell you the truth, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine throughout all the land. But to none of them was Elijah's sin, except Zechariah, in the regions of Sidon, to the woman who was a widow, and many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elijah the prophet, and no one of them cleansed except Naaman the Syrian. So all those who were in the synagogue, when they heard these things, they were filled with wrath, and they rose up and thrust him out of the city, and they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, they might throw him down over the cliff. And so, and passing through the midst of them, he went his way.
Wow.
So Luke has a little bit more detail than Matthew and
Whole
Mark.
lot more. They practically leave off the first with the scripture reading from Isaiah.
A little hostile crowd there.
That's the one the chosen used. They used Luke.
Ah,
Cause they was arguing with it, and they was trying to get some disciples trying to get Jesus shut up, saying, "Well, today this is fulfilled in him." Well, wait a minute. Then they're gonna take him and throw him off a hill over a cliff. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they used this. Of course, in this one, they don't mention Mary or the children.
yeah.
It's half brothers and sisters. That rabbi got pretty heated. This end part of it. When it talks about Elijah. And Naaman. See, I think my Amplified says they heard these things about God's grace to these two Gentiles. The people in the synagogue were filled with rage. That is, Israel's going through all that trouble, and yet Elijah was showing God's favor to two Gentiles. You know how the Jews feel about Gentiles. He rolled up the scroll. Jesus closed the book in the middle of the sentence. He did not continue because the next phrase, the day of vengeance of our God, was not being fulfilled there then. So he didn't quote the whole thing. That's coming. Starting with Isaiah's message, which says, "He has sent me." By citing Isaiah 61, Jesus was claiming to be a royal figure and to have a prophetic mission and release or pardon or forgive to the captives. In the Old Testament, captivity refers to Israel's exile. Here, captivity refers to sin. And those who are oppressed, this was originally the call of Israel, but the nation had failed in its assignment. In the favorable year of the Lord, this phrase is an allusion to the year of Jubilee, when every 15th year all debt was forgiven and slaves were given their freedom. So I don't know if Jesus insinuated that by saying that every day, instead of every 15 years, was a day of salvation.
Care to explain that? That's interesting.
Well, you know, it's telling how that phrase, the favorable year of the Lord, is an allusion to the year of Jubilee, which is every 15 years. all debt was forgiven and slaves were given their freedom. So there you have forgiveness and freedom. So if you take that and apply it to salvation, then it's not every year anymore, it's more like every day. Because in the verses above it where it talks about being pardoned or forgiven to the captives, and it's saying here the captivity refers to sin. So it's just not, it's more of not a physical thing that he's probably referring to. It's more of a spiritual thing, and they probably couldn't comprehend that because they see it as according to Jewish traditions and law, like the Jubilee and
Right.
and that forgiveness might not, and the pardons, that would refer to the year of the year of the Lord, as where slaves were given their pardon. This is the one you see in the movies. I don't care what movie you see about Jesus, they'll do this one and not Matthew and Mark. It reads the scripture.
Yep. Yeah, and Isaiah.
Yeah, it reads the Isaiah
Yep.
scripture.
Well, like we said, that was a little short one tonight. Well, for the second session. And do you have anything to add?
I would think of is that in that whole process, the Jews were looking for a king, and Jesus never really came to this world as a king would come. So you kind of understand their concept of why they were kind of taken back a little bit. Whenever he did all his signs, especially whenever reading in Isaiah here that says, that basically saying that he was the Messiah. I can see where that's like, how can he be the Messiah? He's just a common guy like everybody else. He's not. I can see some of them saying under the breath, he's not no king. He wasn't born of royalty. He's born of a carpenter's son. How can he be a king?
Just a little, so for those who didn't, probably read it and overlooked it, not too many people think about Jesus' relatives.
Yeah.
I think they say that the book of James was his half brother. He just didn't realize that he come from a large family.
It wasn't just him.
Oh.
And could you imagine, Jesus probably had a bad reputation when he was a kid. All of his friends come over and, the mom and the two moms would get together and talk and tell the kids, why can't you be more like Jesus?
That's true.
You don't think his brothers and sisters were jealous, do you?
So, I guess that's it. We will see y'all next week.